Hey guys, Miss DeLitto again. We are going to take a look at solving some equations that involve distribution. So if it's possible, just like when we looked with combining like terms last week, if it's possible, simplify your equation by using distributive property before you solve. Again, the goal of simplifying anything is to make things easier for us. You can also use inverse operations to solve, and we'll take a look at both methods, and you guys can choose, depending on the situation that you have, which one you might choose to use in any given situation. So in example 1, I'm going to use the distributive property to simplify before I solve. And in any situation such as this one, I would probably choose to use the distributive property over those inverse operations. No matter what, you can use either to help you. So let's take a look at solving this first equation. 1/4 times the quantity of 12m minus 4 is equal to negative 40. So I'm going to start by drawing those lines around my equal sign. And just like with combining like terms, these remind me that when I simplify, I cannot simplify or combine anything that are on different sides of the equations. So we'll start with the left side, since this is the part that looks the most complicated. And we're going to use our distributive property to simplify and eliminate our parentheses. So we're going to take 1/4 and multiply it by both terms inside the parentheses. So 1/4 times 12m would give me 3m. And 1/4 times negative 4 would give me negative 1. So we're going to subtract 1. And that's still going to equal negative 40. Now that I've simplified my equation, this looks like an equation we know how to solve. So now we're going to go through and we're going to use our inverse operations to actually solve. So to undo subtracting 1, I'm going to add 1 to both sides of my equation. My new equation is 3m is equal to negative 39. I'll undo multiplying by 3 by dividing both sides by 3. And I'm left with m is equal to negative 13. When you go back to check, you can simply substitute this into your original equation or your simplified equation. In our second example, I'm going to show you a different method to use here, and that's going to be using inverse operations to simplify. But I'm still going to start by drawing those lines around my equal sign. And that tells me that I can't necessarily combine anything that's not on the same side of the equation. But I can use those inverse operations where we use that idea of doing the same thing to both sides of the equation to solve. And what operations I see happening here right now, I see this multiplication. I see negative 2 times the quantity of 3x minus 3. So if I want to, I can undo multiplying 3x minus 3 by negative 2 by dividing the whole thing by negative 2. And if I divide this by negative 2, we know we have to do the exact same thing on the other side of our equation. And this would leave me with 3x minus 3 is equal to negative 12. Again, now we've simplified our equation to a point that we know how to solve this two-step equation. I'll go ahead and do that by adding 3 to both sides. I'm left with my new equation, 3x is equal to negative 9. And we'll divide both sides by 3. So x is equal to negative 3. Either method works, and just to show you that it's possible, I'm also going to solve this equation using the distributive property so that you can see that either option is going to get you to the same answer, but sometimes it may make sense to use one method over the other. So to use the distributive property, I would simply multiply all of my terms here. And now we would go ahead and solve. We would subtract 6 from both sides. And negative 6x is equal to 18. We would divide both sides by negative 6. And x would still be equal to negative 3. So no matter which option you use in terms of solving these types of equations, you're still going to get the same solution. However, if you look back at our first example, I probably would not choose to divide both sides of my equation by 1/4 because that's probably a little harder than it is for me to actually go through and distribute. In this case, it's probably easier either way, but since I know both of these sides could easily be divided by -2, I can choose to use that method. Now, of course, in some cases, like we looked at with our distributive property notes today, you may need to distribute and combine like terms. In order to fully simplify the equation. And fully simplifying before you solve, of course, will make your life a lot easier. That's the whole goal of simplifying. So let's take a look at some examples. So we have 20 is equal to -4 times the quantity of y plus 3 minus 4. So let's go ahead and draw those lines around our equal sign. And again, when we simplify, we want to make sure we're following those order of operations. We can't do anything inside of our parentheses to simplify, so we don't have any exponents. So the next thing we would move on is to multiplication. So we're going to multiply -4. We have -4 times y, which is -4y, and -4 times 3, which is -12, so I'm going to subtract that. And of course, we're going to bring down that -4. Now that we're here, we can still see that we have some like terms. And I'm going to identify those like terms and combine them before I actually go through and solve. So 20 is equal to -4y, and -12 minus 4 is -16. And now I have a two-step equation that I know how to solve. So I'll go ahead and undo subtracting 16 by adding 16 to both sides of my equation. My new equation will be 36 is equal to -4y. I'll undo multiplying y by -4 by dividing both sides by -4. And I'm left with -9 is equal to y. So let's take a look at one more example. Again, we want to make sure that we simplify that equation fully before we solve. This is going to make our life a lot easier. And again, we're going to follow those order of operations. Can't do anything inside the parentheses. We don't have any exponents, so we move to our multiplication next. So we have 2 times -4, which is -8. We have 2 times 3m, which is positive 6m, so I'm going to add 6m. And then, of course, we're going to bring down that plus 2m, and it's still equal to -32. So I still have a bunch of terms here, and a couple of them are like terms, so I'm going to do what I can to combine those. And my new equation would be -8 plus 8m is equal to -32. And now I'm going to go ahead, since I have a nice two-step equation, we're going to go ahead and we're going to solve that equation. So we're going to add 8 to both sides of our equation. And our new equation would be 8m is equal to -24. We're going to undo multiplying by 8 by dividing both sides by 8. And my solution would be m is equal to -3. So as you guys work through your examples, again, make sure that you are simplifying your equation fully before you simplify, and make sure you're paying careful attention to positives and negatives. When you have a simple distribution equation, make sure that you decide what method would be best for you, whether it's to just use the distributive property or just to use those inverse operations. But remember that regardless of which method you choose, you should be getting to the same solution. Good luck, guys.